The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
Sorry.
What was that?
Is that
What is that?
here? Should I play it for the?
Yeah, well, the show has already started,
All
so
right,
go ahead and do whatever you're doing.
I was just watching Margot Lepanta's Snapchats of her dog Phil.
Well, that
He
what
was
better
he was
way?
playing with a cupcake.
What better way to start the show?
Yeah, he was playing with a toy cupcake.
By the way, I brought my dog Boyd down, and Boyd hasn't seen Brandon in a long time. Boyd went bonkers.
Really?
Didn't see Boyd.
Wow,
Brandon,
look
yeah.
at you.
Very happy to see
Nice.
Brandon. All right, so I guess we've started the show.
Yeah, that was
Just as disciplined
like if
and regimented as always.
If as usual, just showing that that we're just a bunch of professionals.
Professionals is the word that comes to
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
And by the way, we're going to get some weird stuff. We're going to talk about Dave Simonette since you're jealous that he went on another podcast on this network without you.
I know. I finally listened to one of your other podcasts.
And it's probably better than this podcast. But no, I didn't say that out loud. But here's how weird this podcast is. And this is the Russo-Souhan Show, part of MNSPN.com. Subscribe at iTunes, your favorite podcast app. You know the drill. I'll tell you about our sponsors and everything else later. So I ask for questions for the show on Twitter, right? Russo Slacks, your best friend, somehow tweets about it, and he says, can we ask about luge, right? So here's how weird this show is. We always end up with these weird tangential connections.
Oh my God, I just saw what you're talking about.
So the Great Britain luge team tweets Russo's Slack saying if they can't answer these questions, fire them at us. So all of a sudden, through this podcast and Russo's Slacks, we are now somehow weirdly connected to the Great Britain luge team, which is Luge GB. I recommend you follow them on Twitter. They only have 405 followers. I imagine after this
did
they'll
you
have
see the Photoshop, his latest?
Yes.
It has you and me as a luge team.
Yeah, I try not to look too close at it. I'm a little afraid of his Photoshops. I really don't want to know what he's Photoshopping.
Holy
That bad? Is it bad?
Well, I mean, here's
Brandon's
the thing,
laughing,
here's the
so it
thing
must
with-
be bad.
Here's the thing with Russo Slacks is lately I get these advisors on my phone. Russo Slacks has tagged you on Instagram. That can never be a good sign.
That can never be a good thing.
I mean, lately I've got pictures of me holding asparagus bushels, if that's the right way to say it. And now me and you on a tandem luge.
Oh, that's not good.
You know, when I
I'm so
covered
glad I didn't
2010,
look.
that was right when, remember when your back was hurting and you didn't come out of your hotel for like 3
I only
weeks?
missed one day, even though I couldn't walk. I remember I rode buses and I rode trains and I covered hockey games and I covered 3 events a day and I could not walk.
In Vancouver. It was unbelievable. But at the Olympics, I covered luge. Remember, I like shadowed Tony Benshoff.
I remember. Yeah,
that was awesome. But I actually learned a ton about luge. That was also when that kid from Georgia died on the track. So I had to cover that because that the Olympics start and then hockey starts usually like a week later. So I had nothing to do for the first week. So I went up to Whistler like 3 or 4 times. I did something on Lindsey Vonn. That was hilarious too. I go up there and she was like snowed out. And I've told this story. I've had to before, but you take you take your bus all the way up to Whistler from Vancouver. And remember, we were staying out at the airport, so it was a pain. Like, I had to be up there at 6 a.m., and we were staying at the airport, so I had to take the train into downtown Vancouver, get on a bus, go 2 hours north. I get up there, you get to the media center in Whistler, and then you get on another bus to go to the mountain. But then you get off the bus there, and you actually take a ski lift up to another part. And so I'm on the ski lift and I'm taking pictures and it's beautiful and I'm over these pine trees and stuff. And next thing I know, we're on our way down and I see that we are going to land in like a freaking mountain full of snow. And I literally like have this outer body experience where I look at what I'm wearing and I'm wearing slacks and boat shoes, no jacket. So you know what happened. I had to like climb like 100 yards of snow mountain with my dress socks going deep into the snow. I climb the stairs now to get into the media center of the what was supposed to be a ski event that day. I take one step on this like laminate tile floor, and my soaking wet socks just absolutely give out from over me, and I go ass over tea kettle. The loudest noise that you could possibly have. This was my entrance to the media center at the ski. And then like 30 minutes later, they're like, they're snowed out today. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Well, you didn't say freaking.
Yeah. And then the one thing I remember about this is then having now to take the ski lift down, the bus back to the media center, get on another media bus to get back down to Vancouver. And the entire time I'm staring at out the window at beautiful British Columbia, like listening to Owl City for like 2 hours. I don't know why this is in my head, but I listened to like Owl City on repeat, which I think they're from Owatonna.
They are.
Yeah.
Any more stream of consciousness you want to fill up the show with?
How did we get into this?
I have no idea. But
we were talking.
The luge. Yeah. And Russo slacks.
Somehow I went into that from the kid that died on the track in Georgia. Yeah, that was probably a bad transition.
We're going to restart the show right now. This is
wait, let me play
please. That'd be fantastic if you could do that.
Yep, hang on. All right, I'm not finding it. Forget it.
What a shame for our listeners that you couldn't find it.
Wait, nope, I found it.
This is the Russo-Souhan Show. He's Michael Russo of The Athletic, theathletic.com. I'm Jim Souhan of the Star Tribune. Thanks to our sponsors, Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. Fixology Repair, third floor of the Mall of America by Nordstrom's. Also downtown, where we did a show last week, just south of the Wells Fargo building in the Skyway, right across from Dunn Brothers. Thanks to Tony, and you can find them at fixologyrepair.com. Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, who handles my insurance and Michael's, and Todd Moritz of Sandvold Financial Group, your friendly local financial advisor. All right, Michael. By the way, before we get to hockey, I referenced it earlier. We had Dave Simonet on the Shaver and Souhan show.
Great podcast.
And it was a blast.
Yeah.
So if you
I didn't like you divulging that I went ghost white when you informed me that they were potentially taking a hiatus.
I thought that was the best part of the show.
Yeah. This one I've known about for like them coming back for like 3-4 weeks, and it took every ounce of energy of me to like not even let Dave know that I know. So, but then I kind of let him know that I know like a little bit before. So it was. I'm very excited, and you know what's amazing is that I've already pre-ordered the album for iTunes, which comes out May 4th. I love their song Kelly's Bar, which I didn't know until listening to your podcast, is a bar up in Red Wing. I think Shaver's awesome on that show.
Yeah, it's a good show.
And then, but the other cool really part is, so today I get a text message from a buddy of mine that is actually how my buddy Chris Holm, he's buddies with Dave's tour manager, and that's how I've kind of got introduced to the bands, coincidentally well before I even met Simonet and Tim and Dave Carroll, Banjo Dave, who I was texting with the last couple of days. So Chris is like, you're not going to believe this. The Palace Theater shows here in St. Paul, their first 2 shows of the new tour in May, sold out in 3 minutes. So I
good for them.
I just texted Dave, though, and he said, Simonet, he said, well, it was a little longer than that, but still a very pleasant surprise. As I have always said to you on the show, I think Dave is the most humble person I've ever met, but I think it's just awesome. It shows how excited everybody is that Trampled by Turtles is back.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him, and he's been on this show before. We had a blast with him out at Tom Reed's, and maybe we'll find a way to do more with Dave as it goes on.
I like the idea of him sitting in with your band. That would be actually
be a blast.
That'd be amazing.
As soon as my bandmates get back from our travels, we'll probably set up a show where Ryan's band plays a little bit, my band plays, and Dave could. I think we could fit Dave in. I think he would do okay in that setting. All right, so let's get to some actual hockey. I do want to thank Twill and the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. We've done live shows at Twill before, and again, it's in the Edina Galleria, easy in, easy out. I buy their clothes. I recommend their clothes, everything from very casual to very high-end.
Hi, I'm Stacy Souhan. I love Twill, Scott Dayton's shop in the Edina Galleria. Twill takes the stress out of shopping by offering updated traditional fashion. I know that if Jim goes in there shopping alone, I will like what he buys, whether it's pajamas, flannel shirts, or suits. I plan to recommend Twill to my daughter when she has to buy wedding party gifts and attire. Twill in the Edina Galleria will bring your fashion game to a championship level.
You know, another thing that about Dave that I completely was shocked about listening to your thing is when he said that he has all the stage fright, like the 10 minutes before going on show, that he's a wreck. Like all of a sudden, the only thing I started thinking about is the guilt that I have because every concert I go to, I go backstage before the show and I just hang out with him and Dave Carroll and those guys, like right to the moment that he goes on. And there's never a moment that, like, usually I've got really good reporter instinct, like I'm not wanted here. Now's the time to leave. I've just sat there and bothered him up until the minute he's like, heading to the stage. And I just wonder, like, deep down all those times, like, Simonette's gotta be like, are you freaking oblivious? Can you just maybe leave now? Just how about this second? Just go. But, as I said, he's the only time I ever remember him getting a little, like, right before a show, a little, like, are you kidding me, was Paul Allen. I've told this story before on the radio, so I don't feel like I'm giving away trade secrets. But when he was doing the Palomino Festival at Canterbury, right before Dave Simonette's about to go on stage with Trampled by Turtle, Paul comes up to him with this idea that he goes on stage to introduce the band and does it like a race call. And Paul is basically petitioning or campaigning for this idea to
and he's using that sincere voice that he always uses
to Dave, and Dave looks at him and goes, I don't think that's a good idea. and then Dave
for Dave
went on stage.
You mean the concert wasn't about Paul Allen?
Yeah. It was funny, though. It was like he wanted to go on and announce them, like, out around the stretch they come. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that would have been great.
So... how about them Wild, huh?
Hey, I think Michael wants to talk some hockey.
So what a difference a week makes, as usual, with this freaking this team.
But you have been pointing out that the team, whatever we think of them on a day-by-day basis, they have been one of the better teams in the league for a long time.
Right now, tomorrow, who knows what happens to the Caps, and we're going to be laughing at this. The thing is that, like, and somebody pointed this out on Twitter right when I tweeted out the story today, but the person tweeted out, I just listened to the Russo-Souhan podcast from last week, and you said the complete opposite on there. And it was the Matt Cullen story that I wrote today. But if you think about it, a week ago, Matt Cullen was on fourth line, just coming off a healthy scratch and still not in great graces, and now all of a sudden they're 3-0-1 since. He's been on the third line playing great, and the team suddenly has actually a little bit of breathing room in a playoff spot. It doesn't feel that way, but if you actually look at the Pacific Division in the top three, the Wild have a really nice sized cushion right now, because now those teams, if say the LA Kings move in, get another 2 points, a team from the Pacific is actually going to fall out of a playoff spot. So the Wild, because they have a higher points percentage than right now San Jose, Anaheim, LA, Calgary, the Wild actually have breathing room, because those teams in the top three right now, every time they lose, they're probably going to move out of the playoffs rather than into a wild card spot. So right now the Wild are in pretty good shape as long as they keep on getting points here. And, I said it on Twitter today. I mean, this is... I think that anybody that listens to this show knows that I'm no Minnesota Wild apologist and trying to be a homer here, but in the deep down grand scheme of things, we all are. Media and fans, we're so tunnel visioned on looking at just the Wild that we don't really look at what's going on with the other 30 NHL franchises here. And when it comes down to it, helped by this week, the Wild are one of the winningest teams in the league since mid-November, and they're the fourth best team in the league since Christmas.
Yep.
But we have this feeling because the three of the four regulation losses have been absolutely abysmal in Colorado, Dallas, and Pittsburgh, and because of the meltdown that they had against the Arizona Coyotes, and the inconsistencies that this team is just putrid. But I think it just comes down to the bad losses, the fact that they had such a disappointment last year, the fact that fans are getting tired of the core of this team and just don't believe that they're still going to go on a run. But deep down, I mean, they can only play the season they're in, and they're actually performing quite well right now. And the other thing is, I know they've been inconsistent lately, but if you actually go back not far long ago into mid-January, there was a string of games where the Wild were dominant on home ice. There were no slow starts. They were coming out on fire. They were playing complete games, and against teams like Tampa and things like that. So they've put themselves in good shape, but who knows what we're going to sound like tomorrow if all of a sudden Cullen plays like crap and the team plays like crap against the Capitals. You just don't know, right? And then you got Anaheim, huge game coming up there on Saturday. And then you got a big 3-game road trip against the Islanders and Devils and Rangers. So it's going to be like this. The fluctuations of emotions for all of us the rest of the way is just because things are so tight. Stahl said it the other day to me in a story that I wrote. It's going to be like this. We're all going to go on this roller coaster the rest of the way, and that's the way it's going to be.
Well, it's funny because I've noticed that now that the Wolves are having their first good season in 15 years or whatever, I'm seeing that there too. And people don't go, oh, good, this team's going to be in the playoffs. This is a huge step forward to the franchise. They go, oh my God, how could you have lost that game on Tuesday at Orlando?
Right.
It's whatever is wrong becomes the dominant story. And frankly, if you're in the media, you kind of have to do that. You have to react to whatever just happened. We publish daily.
Yeah.
We do a show weekly. But you also have to have the ability to take a half step back and say, okay, everybody has bad losses, and the big picture is always the big picture.
Well, let me tell you something here. I just mentioned to you, it's funny that you transition into that. It's better than my transition from luge to
nothing could have been better than your transition from luge to doggy noises.
Again, we all look at only one team, not 31. I feel like I'm a little different than the average fan. This is not an aberration, teams coming back from 3 goals down. First of all, right now, and I said this, I think, on the last podcast, this happens every year. Arizona's on fire right now. Go into San Jose, win, beat the Wild, beat Chicago. This happens every year with these bad teams. When all of a sudden the pressure's off, they're out of a playoff, they start beating good teams. Okay? We just saw Buffalo do that to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We just saw Dallas get steamrolled 6-0 at home to Dallas. This just happens in the NHL. You've seen it I used to say when I was covering those shoddy Florida Panther teams that I remember I liked it better when we were allowed to just swear.
You can swear.
I don't think that it's good. I don't want to make Brandon work harder.
It's fun to I actually like it when for a while we just cussed. And then we heard from people with parents with kids didn't want that. So we started bleeping. I actually like that. I like because then you can speak freely and know it's not going to.
But I do. One thing I do agree with you is that it's not like we have an age limit. Anybody can listen. There's hockey kids, fans everywhere that are children, so I probably shouldn't. But anyway, so I used to say that when I covered those crappy Florida Panther teams and those Tampa Bay Lightning teams, they were so bad back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And those teams were the most dangerous teams in the league in the last month of a season. Now, obviously, it's way earlier than the last month of the season here that Arizona's on fire and things like that. But the other thing that is very different about today's NHL yesteryear, and I talked to this about Boudreau the other day at a presser, is that back in the old days, if a team scored first, they were guaranteed to win. It was and you never saw comebacks from 2 goals down. I texted my buddy with Elias Sports Bureau today, and I said it just seems last night St. Louis in Nashville dominating the game, up 3-0. They lose 4-3 in overtime. They gave up 3 goals in the last 10 minutes of the third period. A little different, by the way, than the Wild meltdown, only to a much better team. So I texted this guy, and I just said, what is the stats? Because it seems like this happens every night. Now, I will say it hasn't happened as much as I thought this year, but 27 times this season, a team has blown a 3-goal lead.
Wow.
That is crazy.
That is.
So what happened to the Wild the other day is not It's the first time it happened to them. It sucks. They don't, it was unacceptable. It was even more unacceptable because they were garbage even when they were up 3-0 in that game, where I watched the highlights of the St. Louis game yesterday. St. Louis was actually great. Now, I will say, when I say 27 evaporated 3-goal leads, they weren't all losses. 18 of them, actually, the team wound up blowing the lead and still winning. But 9 of them have been blown for losses. And so this is happening. It just seems like every night there's teams blowing at least 2-goal leads and losing. So, again, the other thing, by the way, to go back to our other subject, is another reason why the complexion of the season just feels so negative is because the Wild have 14 times this year either been tied or had the lead in the third period and didn't wind up getting the win. So it's led to 22 lost points in the standings. If they had 10 of those, they'd be leading the freaking conference, So just think of that. If they don't blow those 14 games, if they just blew of those 14, if they just blew 9 of them, they'd be leading the conference and everybody would think this team's great.
Yeah. It's crazy. So true. Thanks again to FixologyRepair.com. Fixology Repair, 3rd floor of the Mall of America by Nordstrom's. It's a beautiful shop, and also their new shop downtown Minneapolis, just south of the Wells Fargo Center in the Skyway, across from Dunn Brothers and Taco John's. We did a live show there last week. We'll do that again. We really like John Hedges, and he's been very supportive of this program. And also, if you'd like to support the program, you can advertise with us or sponsor us. You can reach out to me at jsouhan@StarTribune.com. Here you are. And here's more information on FixologyRepair.com.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at our 2 locations, Mall of America and the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis. Please visit us at FixologyRepair.com or at FixologyMN on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
Happy Friendversary.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Who the Facebook. First of all, Facebook's like nauseating today. If I got to see one more freaking thing about my there's nothing greater than my wife, and there's nothing worse than Facebook on Valentine's Day. But what's even worse on Facebook on Valentine's Day is when you chime into Facebook on Valentine's Day and the first freaking thing you see on your timeline is a picture of Jim Souhan, happy friendversary, with all this sappy music in the background about you being friends.
That is the worst. That's
so
the worst
7 years ago
happen.
today, Jim, remember, I think it was 7 years ago and a week before you said, I'm never joining Facebook or Twitter. And then next thing you know, we're 7 years ago today.
And you know what? Can we go back and have me actually fulfill that promise and never join Facebook or Twitter?
It's kind of needed now, though.
That's the thing. It's exactly right. It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's not always pretty.
Yeah.
Speaking of Twitter.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say the other thing that the whole thing that person actually talked to me about, how it was a complete opposite of what we said on the podcast last week, was the fact that I was basically saying the Wild are probably going to trade Cullen no matter what. And they could still. I mean, it depends on what else that you have. To me, only trade Cullen if you're going to be able to get a center back, if you feel like a Cunning's ready to step in. Or you feel like I'm sorry. The one thing I should have probably put in my story today is if for some reason Chuck Fletcher is able to say to Pittsburgh, that second round pick that you got there, that's what we want for Matt Cullen. Then maybe you do it. But if you're just going to get a 5th or something, to me, it's just not worth
bother.
it. It's not worth it.
Let's do some Twitter questions unless you had another topic you wanted to get to.
No.
Okay.
I did, but I can't remember what it was.
It'll come to you right in the middle of something. When I try to say something brilliant, it'll.
Oh, I know what it was. I'll just save it for my final thought.
Oh, we got a final thought today. Instead of him just saying, no, I don't have a final thought, when he's completely sick of me at the end of the show. From Zach Brown, old friend Zach Brown, what's going on with Louis Belpedio? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah.
Is he going to sign with the Wild?
I don't know. It's funny. I thought there was going to be no big deal with that. And then actually a Twitter follower actually pointed out, you do have to wonder if Louis would be interested in signing with the Wild if he sees that Spurgeon, who's not locked up long-term anymore, but that the team will eventually lock him up long-term. And Dumba's probably going to get an extension if all of a sudden that says to him, well, I don't see an in there. But, to me, there's still that avenue to play for this team on the third pair. It's not like a Prosser is going to be here forever. So I would think that that the Wild would be able to convince him of that, but we'll see. I mean, I will reach out to his advisor this week and ask that question, because I'm sure the Wild have, because they probably want to know going into the trade deadline, because if they get the impression that he's not going to sign after the season at Miami University, well, then obviously you add him to that. You might not be willing to give futures away of Greenway, Cunnin, and Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov, but if all of a sudden a Belpedio or Ladnia, those type of guys might be somebody that you might have to dangle out there, and I think the Wild would if they thought that they weren't going to trade him. When I will say this, when I asked Brent Flair last week about it, he said, as far as I know, we're going to sign him. But things change.
Yeah, of course.
And again, the rule on Belpedio is if he is not signed by June 1, he can become a free agent August 15th, I believe it is.
Oh, okay, cool. From Justin Wiggins on Twitter, did you see the amazing Kaprizov goal Wednesday morning? Have you heard the rumors of Chuck Fletcher and company smuggling him out of South Korea while we still can? Also, did Mikko score last night asking for a friend?
Mikko did not score last night. Neither did Eriksson Ek. That guy just cannot score. It's crazy.
Which one?
Eriksson Ek. Hey, Mikko's got 2 power play goals in the last 4 games.
That's true. You're right.
No, they're not smuggling Kaprizov out of South Korea. I did see the goal.
From Biff Sticks, do any players listen to this show?
If they do, they haven't told me.
I know that there was one player at one time who was listening to monitor what we were saying about him, but he's probably not doing it on an active basis all the time. My experience with athletes is they don't necessarily tune in to anybody. They like to hear second or third hand from their friends and family members, if anything.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think the times that I'm sure they've listened are the times that like one of their friends or family is like, "Hey, did you hear what Russo said about you?" And blah blah blah.
Yep.
Which is, that is. I was talking to Nino about this 2 days ago in the locker room. We were talking about negative press and all this stuff, and I was telling him, back in the old days when I first started covering this league, I wouldn't say you're buddies with the players, but you were friendly with the players. Like it was not uncommon for me to be on the road and going for drinks with these guys. Or now
Same with
it's
me
like
with the Twins.
And I remember once we had this. This I probably shouldn't say, but who gives a crap, right? It was 16, 17 years ago. But I remember once we were in San Jose for the Super Bowl, and the players invited us to their Super Bowl quote unquote party at Britannia there, which is owned by Owen Nolan. It's a bar there. And we were watching the Super Bowl there, and I'm sitting there, and there were two Panther players that were underage at that time, just pounding beers, and but there was never that part of them that would have worried that something we saw in such a private setting would ever wind up in print. Where now today, because of social media, because of talk radio, because of podcasts, because we're able to expound our opinions in multiple avenues.
Formats, yep.
The players are probably justifiably nervous about us. We are considered kind of the enemy, which is sad. It's gone that way, and I think one of the issues, one of the things I try to do is to show them like I am not here to burn you. Now in a game, if you turn the puck over, I got to write it. If you Twitter also is another one where you might tweet something that just doesn't come out the way that it should, or unprofessionally. So these guys have many different ways to get pissed with you, where back in the day it was just in the newspaper, and when you were on the road, you could sit there and rip on a player all the time, and you never, they'd never even see it. So it's a little different world now.
Absolutely. I do want to thank Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, Hoaglund. Again, works out of his Champlin office, but he gets around to all corners of the Twin Cities. We played golf with him over in Blaine. He's a good dude. He handles my insurance. He also handles Michael Russo's insurance.
Right now, 1 in 3 drivers is cruising around in a state of skepticism about just how much value their car insurance company is delivering. If you are one of them, State Farm agent Tony Hoagland in Champlin can help you get to a better state, because he'll talk with you, listen to you, and help you put together a policy that has you written all over it, from cost to coverage, all backed by 24/7 customer support. Feeling less skeptical? Then call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland in Champlin and officially get to a better state with State Farm. And you can reach Tony at 763-421-4900.
From Nick Hunter, if this team limps to another first-round exit in the playoffs, who won't be back next season? We can probably defer on that question because they probably are going to make the playoffs. From NH on Twitter, are Fletcher and Boudreau having a hard time accepting that today's game is played with speed and youth?
No, I don't think they're having a hard time. Maybe the Fletcher thing, like this, there is a fallacy, and I see it on the comments of my stories all the time that Bruce Boudreau wants a lineup full of Marcus Folignos and Chris Stewarts. Let me just promise you that Bruce has not been a fan of the way that Marcus has played for at least the first 2 months of the season, and has clearly run out of patience with Chris Stewart's game, and there's also this belief that he just hates little guys. I mean, then what's the excuse for him loving everything that Granlund and Spurgeon do? Mm-hmm. There are little guys he doesn't like when they don't play the way that he wants them. So if you're Tyler Ennis and you're tiny and you're losing every single battle in the corner and things like that, yeah, he's not going to be happy with your game. But he's like that with the bigger guys too. Right. I mean, trust me. So, I don't know what the question was.
It doesn't really matter at this point. From Sunny Skies, is Stewart hurt and is Stewart tradable?
Stewart's not hurt. I don't know if he's tradable. I cannot. Maybe. I'm sure they're trying everything they can to unload him. That would give them a little cushion, going into the trade deadline.
From Luke Reachins, listener to many of the podcasts on the network, what can the Wild get for Charlie Coyle?
I don't know. I mean, if you're going to trade Coyle at this point, I think you want to get a player back in the same range. So I think that's where we talk about a hockey trade that's a hockey trade that could be potentially consummated here that could get something of substance and back. So I'm not going to start guessing. I am not. It bothers me when people just throw out names. In fact, we were talking about this at The Athletic this week. They want all of us to kind of this is what this is what your team should do. And I'm just, in today's day and age where you have all these aggregators out there and rumor sites and rumor manufacturers, and you can't even speculate anymore because it just becomes fact, and then you don't know what to. I mean, frankly. The reason what I liked about my story today with Cullen is that as you could see in there, it's no longer just speculation on my part that the Wild and Pittsburgh are talking. I have, without saying it, say it in there, that Pat Morris and Chuck Fletcher have been in contact about the future of Matt Cullen, and what has been told through sources to Pat Morris's agent is, look, I got to see where we are in 6 games, and then I'll decide. And what that means is, yes, Pittsburgh is an option. And I've got to think that Chuck Fletcher would do out of respect, would only trade Matt Cullen there. Yeah. Even if, there are 5-6 teams right now looking for centers, I cannot imagine that Chuck Fletcher would, without Matt Cullen's permission, say, all right, I'm going to send you to freaking
Calgary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, what the Wild don't have a lot of tradable assets in their core that they're willing to move right now, right? I mean, I can't imagine they're trading Zucker and Dumba. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't imagine, at least now, I can't imagine they're trading Nino and Granny after committing to them, but who knows, maybe. So Coyle is the one that makes sense because he has a pretty appetizing contract. He still has the tools that everybody sees on a nightly basis. So if you're going to trade him, it's got to be for something of substance. And again, the only way you trade him is if you're taking that type of money back. Otherwise, I think you wait till the summer anyway.
Right.
So
from Bobby DeFranzo, chances the Wild sign Jordan Greenway after the Olympics?
Not after the Olympics. I wrote that in my story the other day. They are allowed to. But both Chuck Fletcher and when I talked to Jordan's advisor, I don't think that Jordan would want to abandon his teammates at Boston University and just leave after the Olympics and not go back and play in the tournaments and things like that. So the good news, if you're a Wild fan, is that BU hasn't been very good this year. So, unless they win the Hockey East tournament, I don't think they have a way of getting into the NCAAs. And so if that's the case, we're going to see Jordan Greenway sooner than later. If they lose in the first portion of the Hockey East tournament, we'd see him in early March, as long as he does sign. If they go a little bit, it would be more mid to late March. And again, he's on their reserve list, so the Wild can sign him at any point, and he would be playoff eligible. The other thing there is, he's still a college player that hasn't had the greatest year in the world. So the fact that we all are kind of talking about him like he's going to be able to come in and be put into the lineup and make some sort of impact right away, I think is an interesting little, we've got to, let's see type thing. And then, of course, the Wild, they're in also a kind of a quandary because they want Iowa to go on a little playoff run. But at some point you want to bring Cunnin back. So again, maybe you move a Cullen and a Stewart to create some room to bring a Cunnin back because rosters expand after the deadline. Or maybe you have to wait like Marco Scandella in 2013 and wait till there's no more salary cap anymore, and then you bring a Cunnin back. But again, there is a situation where I think the Wild want to make sure that Iowa goes on a run too. So it's kind of like, is there a role for Cunnin to play significant minutes here, or would he get better value playing Iowa in the playoffs and playing first line, first power play, first PK?
Again, if you'd like to sponsor the program, reach out to me at jsouhan@startribune.com. Thanks for all the Twitter questions. We have more Twitter questions coming. Do want to thank Todd Moritz, Moritz, of Sandvold Financial Group, SAND, V as in Victory, OLD.
Plan for tomorrow today. It sounds easy, but for many people it's not. The good news is, planning for your financial future isn't something you have to do all by yourself. Visit sandvoldfinancialgroup.com to request more information and ask for the tax-efficient insight of Todd Moritz, CPA.
Registered representative of and independent of Questar Capital Corporation. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Questar Asset Management.
From Ben Streeter, how high are the Wild brass on Annis's play and projection in the NHL?
It's shocking to me that they don't talk about him more because, every time I turn on the highlights and definitely look at the stat sheet, he's scoring, but they haven't brought him up. So, no, they haven't had you need a top role for him to me. He doesn't make sense to bring him up and put him with Foligno and Stewie or Winnick on the fourth line or anything like that. But, he's undersized. He definitely, on the defensive side of the puck, has a lot to learn. But man, he is skilled. Just look at his YouTube highlights from when he was in college.
Absolutely. From Joe Rogers, what's the most absurd trade proposal or rumor you've seen on the internet recently?
Well, somebody said, who says no first? Ladnia, a first, and Cunnin for Ryan McDonough. And I just replied, OMG. Like, you can't even make that one up.
From Tony Leonard, let's see.
By the way, on McDonough, McDonough is an interesting one because I do think the Wild are very intrigued by Ryan McDonough. But here's the thing with McDonough. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He makes decent money at 5.3 in actual cash. But the thing that's scary is that if you trade for Ryan McDonough, and again, to trade for Ryan McDonough, you have to give up a Charlie Coilish. You're going to have to, if you wanted to trade for him now, you have to give up significant salary off your team. They can't afford him. And even if the Rangers retained a quarter or a half his salary, the Wild, I don't think, can afford him with the cap, so you'd have to give up money. How do you acquire a guy like that and give up significant assets when he has had many concussions? He is right now out with an upper body injury, and he's been banged up for the last couple years and this season a lot. And knowing that in a year you've got to re-sign him to significant dollars, I just think that's a tough thing. And the other dynamic is you have to think, how is the minutes going to be divvied up between Suter, him, and Brodin? So it just, as much as I know there's a lot of intrigue in the Wild organization about Ryan McDonough, I would think that if Ryan McDonough could no longer be on the Rangers, that he'd be intrigued about playing here. I just have trouble seeing the fit right now. I think the Wild have other needs. Now, if all of a sudden Suter wasn't on this team anymore, or they traded a Brodin, then that changes everything. But right now, I just can't see the fit.
Interesting. From Ryan Thronson on Twitter, do you speculate in the cryptocurrency market?
No, my brother does, and after seeing how his heart fluctuates like Wild fans do with the Wild, I would never. I just don't. I don't even understand it. But all I know is that my brother has, at least in theoretical money, has lost a ton in the last month.
Yeah. From a bunch of Viking players are standing around talking about what a great investment it was at the end of the season, and I was like,
it's just so turbulent. It just goes,
And plus, why? Here's my thing: why invest in something heavily? I understand like throwing $20 out there or $50. Why invest in something heavily you don't understand?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't even get it. I mean, my mind doesn't work like that. I honestly know nothing about anything when it comes to finance or business. It could be, you could sit here for 3 hours and explain it to me and I still wouldn't get it. Like, my mind does not wired like that. I am a dumbass.
Brandon, you have to save that, That might be the new lead-in for the show. That's our new introduction.
I'm not even like being self-deprecating. It is completely true. No, I don't know if I have a learning disability when it comes to anything not sports or anything like, not like that matters. but it's like, I mean, it's cloudy up in my head when anybody talks about
Save all
anything
this,
that matters in the world.
Save all that, Brandon. That's our new lead-in. Thank you for providing that,
Too
Michael.
much caffeine.
And I also resemble that remark, by the way.
Yeah.
From Dan Seberg, any concern from the Wild about not having Capo Kakkonen? How badly did I mispronounce that name?
I don't even know. Capo Kakkonen.
Signed yet.
I don't know. It's weird. So I do this Hockey News Future Watch thing, and I'm currently writing it. In fact, I'm glad that person said that because it's due tomorrow, and I haven't written it yet. But they send you. I think there is this fallacy out there when people read it that I pick the top 10 prospects in the organization. It's sent to me, but it's sent to me through counsel with the organization. So they have a team of scouts at Hockey News, but then they go over it with Brent Flair. And I just thought it was weird that he wasn't one of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they are thinking that they aren't going to bring him over. I don't know.
From Tyler Bennett, do you think if the Seattle expansion goes through that the expansion draft will stay the same or change?
They have made it very clear it's going to change. I talked to Bill Daly about this during the All-Star game, and remember the expansion fee is actually going up to $650 million divided by 31 owners.
Wow.
From $500 million. So if anything, they're going to get more ability to have a good team.
Is hockey bothered? Are the other owners and GMs bothered that Vegas was able to be good right away?
The owners divvied up 30 divided by 500, so they don't have a right to say anything. And essentially, when I talk to Chuck Fletcher and other GMs about it, they kind of say the same thing. Look, I mean, this is what you get. When the Florida Panthers came in, it was $50 million expansion fee, I think. I think it was 80 for Minnesota. It's a lot different. 17, 18 years later, and for that price, this is what they get. And it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of Wild fans. Now, again, this isn't trying to analyze what Chuck Fletcher did at the draft and giving up Tuck and Hollow to protect Scandella and Dumba. Criticize it all you want if you want. What I think people don't realize is that there were only 7 or 8 teams that were affected the way the Wild were going into this, just the amount of at the ages of their players versus the expansion rules. And the Wild were one of like 7 or 8 teams, and the Wild probably more than anybody that was affected by the expansion rules. But in 3 years, it's going to be a lot more teams. I'm like Toronto Maple Leafs. What do you think they're a little worried about Seattle right now and what they're going to have to do? So like in 3 years, maybe the Wild are not in that situation and all these other teams are. So, I mean, it's just kind of the way unfortunately, it was bad timing for the Wild.
From Bill on Twitter, Olofsson seems to be handling the increased ice time well as a product of competition or his usage at home with the last change.
I think that I think that before the Arizona game, he was playing great hockey. The Arizona game, he didn't look very good. But I thought he was great in St. Louis, and I thought he was playing really well for the 8, 9, 10 games in a row that Riley was scratched. So right now, I think this changes their complexion. They really wanted to see in these next 6 games. They wanted to give Sealer a look to see how critical it was for them to maybe can they last a month without Brodin. If Olofsson's playing well, and they feel like between Sealer and Riley, even though they're clearly we know what they think of Riley at this point. If they think they could bide the time, then all of a sudden you go out and you get a winger or a forward or a center. If all of a sudden Olofsson was crapping himself all over the ice, and Riley, again, we know what they think of him, and Sealer looked terrible yesterday, and we'll have to see what Sealer looks like in the next couple games if he plays. Then all of a sudden they feel like maybe, hey, we better go get a defenseman quick. So we'll see.
When you talk about Riley, is it just how they feel about him now, or have they drawn conclusions?
Well, I think people keep on asking me if he's expendable. He's been expendable for 2 months. He's been scratched. I was writing in late November, early December. There was chatter that he was on the block and that his agents were allowed to maybe talk to other teams. And here we are 2 months later, and either they haven't been able to trade him or they haven't found something that they want to trade him for. Then then you start playing him to maybe try to show other teams, and then he goes down to Dallas and has as bad a game as you could possibly had. Like, I watched his shifts over. He didn't have a good shift in the game. I've never seen a defenseman not have a good shift in the game. So he put himself in a position where now then you get the injury to Brodin and you throw him in the next game. And I know it's one game, but they just didn't like the way that he played against Arizona and Chicago. So 2 games. So now they just felt like, hey, wins are more important than showcasing him and trying to move him. So they had to pull him again. So it's a shame. I still think it was absurd that they let his waivers go out in December. And here they are. At this point, you almost start to wonder, hey, if Chuck Fletcher knows, I've tried everything to trade him for anything and I'm not being able to trade him right now, then maybe they just throw him on waivers here at the end of by the trade deadline. Because remember, guys, that's how they lost Zach Delpy. You almost have to sneak guys through waivers right before the trade deadline. Maybe this is the beginning of the end.
A couple more Twitter questions and Michael's final thought. We appreciate everybody listening. As always, again, you can find all the shows by subscribing at iTunes, your favorite podcast app, at mnspn.com. Thanks to Twill in the Edina Galleria, Twill MN on the internet, Twill on Twitter, Fixology Repair, 3rd floor of the Mall of America, and now with the downtown location of the Skyway. Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, and Todd Moritz of Sandvold Financial Group. Did you have something come up, Michael?
No, I just got a text from my mother that said there's a shooting at Parkland High School in Florida, which is and the shooters at large, and it's the high school. It's the high school where. It's the city next to where I grew up, but it's also the high school that my God, I mean, half the Wild players, families go to there, I know a couple former Wild Panther players, that their kids go to that high school, and all Panther players usually live in Parkland, so that's a little scary.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
From a couple more Twitter questions from Nikolai. Do you think Fletcher still has lingering interest in Kane, and have the recent Buffalo trade soured on dealing with them?
Well, that's funny. I think that he would, but again, I mean, you got to give up something to get him, and you got to be able to. If you're going to give up, I mean, if you're Chuck Fletcher and you know that they want a fortune right now for Evander Kane and assets, and you're probably going to lose him after this year, what can you give up for him? So I just would be shocked. I do think, though, that Evander Kane is going to make some team very happy. I just think he's extremely motivated. By the way, it just dawned on me last week. I think I said that Mike Hoffman was I don't know why I had a kind of a brain cramp, but I think I said Mike Hoffman was a rental, and he's not a rental. He's got a couple years left on his deal. But in terms of Kane, I just think he's, and I said this last week, I just think he's so motivated to play in his first playoffs and to get out of Buffalo that, that he's going to be great.
From Luke Reachins again, what would it take for the Wild to be able to dump Foligno's contract this summer?
Well, probably to Arizona. I mean, it would have to be a team like that has a ton of cap space. Arizona right now, it's untradeable because as far as I know, I think they're at the max contracts. Last time I looked, there were 2 teams still at 50, and so that means that you can't dump a bad contract on Arizona right now unless they're going to give up a couple contracts.
From Jake Warren, last Twitter question. We didn't get to all the Twitter questions, of course. We do appreciate them. Sometimes they've already been answered. Sometimes we just don't have time to get to all of them. But final one for the day, and then we'll go to Michael's final thought. Jake Warren, do you feel the new rules changes this year, slashing and faceoffs, hurt the Wild to start the season, and we're now seeing more success as the team has had time to adjust?
Well, definitely. I mean, early in the season, they were freaking taking 6, 7, 8 penalties a game, yep. And remember that was a constant theme and now they're not. And I was talking to Chuck Fletcher about this the other day because he said, I can't figure out why so many teams are blowing all these leads, and I think it's part of that. I think that right now, these players adjust, and there was a time where headshots were an absolute epidemic in the league. The league cracked down on it, and now you see now when you see one, like the one with Andrew Burrows and Taylor when he started kneeing the freaking guy's head, kneeing Taylor Hall's head, you're so shocked and disgusted by it because it never happens anymore. And we're kind of seeing that now. I mean, it's unbelievable the lack of slashes that usually go on right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other night, I tweeted this during the game. Eriksson Ek skated he's pressed against the wall with 3 Blackhawks within 1.5 foot and 2 feet of him, and nobody did anything to even inhibit him. They didn't check them. They didn't slash them. Nothing. And I just think that the game now is to the point where these guys are pretty much not. It's like the no-hitting league. Every night, Mikael Granlund puts himself in a position that 5 years ago he would have gotten killed on the ice. It's unbelievable. We were in Columbus, and there were like 3 passes made from Zucker to Granlund. I'm like, oh my God. And Columbus didn't even think of even checking him open ice. And I'm like, there are times where I'm hoping to sit down with. I got this. I'm going to New York this week. I got so many different stories lined up. I'm going to Shadow NHL Network one night. I'm going to the Department of Player Safety one night. I'm taking a tour of Elias Sports Bureau. But one of the things I'm hoping to do is sit down with Scott Stevens. And but there are times. I mean, I bet you Scott Stevens looks at these games on a nightly basis is just like sickened by the lack of even checking anymore. So, what was the question?
Final thought.
Final thought. I don't know. I don't remember.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
you set us up for a final thought.
I will say this. All right, I got. Here's one. I just got off the phone with Anders Lee. Doing a big feature on him for Sunday. Really excited. I got really kind of the scoop of his whole recruiting process, which I've never known before, and how he wound up on Notre Dame, how the Gophers basically showed no interest in him. Anders Lee, as I said, it's changed because he has definitely slowed down lately, but in January, last time I looked, in a 13-month stretch, he was tied for the league in goals with Nikita Kucherov, and so that has slowed down lately because he hasn't scored a ton lately. But I want to do a story. He's a year from UFA too, so he's keeping an eye on what's going on with Tavares and Josh Bailey there. He also he's got. Anybody that's ever told me about Anders Lee says that he's just an incredible person, incredible heart. He's doing this cancer jam the night of the Wild afternoon game there on President's Day on Monday, where basically he's raised almost $100,000 to benefit children's cancers, and they're doing this whole thing where all his Islander teammates, they're going to the Brooklyn Nets practice facility and playing like that frisbee jam cat thing or whatever it's called. So I'm doing a big thing on that. And then I'm going to somebody's house on Friday that I'm really looking forward to this story. It'll run on February 21st next week. It's to me, it's gonna be just an awesome story too.
You invited, or are you gonna break in?
No, I've been invited. Really humbled that they're letting me into their house. So I'm gonna be doing a big story on this person next week. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good. Well, we'll talk about that next week. Once again, thanks to everybody who listens. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the network and this program, and we'll get to reveal all of Michael's mysteries next week.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
It's your last chance to get gifts before the holiday, and right now at Old Navy, everything's up to 75% off with gifts from just $1, $2, $3, and $4. Buy online, pick up in store for free in 2 hours with extended store hours too. Get up to 75% off everything at Old Navy and OldNavy.com now. Valid 12/18 to 12/24, excludes gift cards, today only, 2-day only deals, register lane items, jewelry, and Zip Zap stuff gifting bins. Orders must be placed before 4 p.m. for same-day pickup, subject to availability and delays. Additional terms apply.
Security threats are everywhere. But with Xfinity XFi, you're notified of threats to your in-home Wi-Fi network, so all your connected devices are protected. That's simple, easy, awesome. Go online, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit today. Restrictions apply.